Hi everyone, this is a video to help you with your Cubist project. I talked about all of this in the lecture, but I'll just go over it a little bit. You have three different phases of Cubism. Proto-Cubism, an example of that would be Les Demoiselles d'Avignon by Picasso. You can see the forms are starting to be broken down into geometric planes, and you have a lot of use of earth tones. Then they moved into Analytic Cubism, and Pablo Picasso and Georges Braque were working on very closely together at the same time. This is a painting by Picasso and one by Georges Braque. This is the accordionist, which is in the perspective lecture. And this is Man with a Guitar, and you can see at that phase, when they were working so closely together, you can barely tell the difference between their paintings. In the analytic phase, they pretty much removed a lot of the color. They just worked with earth tones, and then you're just seeing total breakdown of the space, very beautiful, abstracted. You're seeing objects from all different angles all at the same time, which is breakdown of that traditional Baroque space that we just did in the perspective drawing. Then after that, we moved into what was, here's another painting before I go on to the next part. Nude Descending a Staircase by Marcel Duchamp, which is about the same time. You see in this one has some of the feeling of the Analytic Cubist period, but you can see the form much more clearly. So in some of the earlier proto-Cubist paintings that are kind of moving into full Cubism, you will see things like this going on in Picasso and Braque and Juan Gris paintings as well. And then they went into what's called synthetic Cubism. There's some examples of that. Just go over here. So what happened was in about 1912, Georges Braque started doing collaging, because he realized that what they were doing with their painting was really flattening the space. So they started doing actual collages, which you could do, any of these three types of Cubism, or you could just, do your own take on it. And they would take, pieces from sheets of music and newsprint and have words in it and add more color. You see a lot of pattern and bright color in the synthetic Cubist period. Here's another example. You can see in this book here. It's another collage painting by Picasso. And you can see it's of a musical instrument, the guitar, which was a focus for a lot of his work. And again, very kind of, muted earth tones, neutralized colors in that painting. Here's another example. This is one of the first collages that Braque did when he started doing that. It's a very famous painting by Picasso. Again, he actually used actual chair caning in some of it, so they would sometimes paint the textures on and sometimes paint the words on, sometimes use actual newsprint and actual objects to create the textures. There's another one, another beautiful synthetic phase. Not as, the colors aren't as intense as they got later on. And in this painting by Picasso, Three Musicians, there's two different versions of this. One is in the Museum of Modern Art. You can see that the increase in the patterning, this is all painted, it's not collage, but it looks like a collage. The flattening of the space, we can see the forms, but they're highly abstracted, and the color is much deeper and more intense. And I want to show you one more example. Now, I took some painting courses with my mother years ago. This is actually a painting. She was a very good painter. She did years ago of an analytic. This is the only way I can show it to you, unfortunately, because I'm filming from above. But this was a project we had in a painting class where we had to do a Cubist work. And we were told, I think, to set up a little still life. I had one painting, beautiful painting that I did, but I can't find it right now, so I can't show that to you. But this was the painting that she did. She went more towards the analytic style of Cubism, and mine was a little bit more like the synthetic style. So what you could do for this is you could start out with a point of reference, like a photograph of something, a portrait of your cat or your dog, or a landscape photo that you took, or whatever. You could do it as a collage, a drawing, a painting, or anything that you feel like doing. A marker drawing. And I started out doing a drawing here. I just started sketching. Now what I did, this was going in the direction, actually this is the wrong way around, I was thinking I want to do an analytic Cubist work. So I started out with this little vase-like shape over here, and then I just kept repeating and echoing all different parts of it, like the top part of it, the bottom, but not always seen, you know, as if we're looking at it head-on or as if we're looking at it in traditional three-dimensional space. I'm starting to add my shading in, and I can add some color in. It's just, you know, kind of a free-form sketch. But remember, with the analytic phase, you're showing all different facets all at the same time. Like one angle may be highlighted from the left, you know, but then you might show another one where the highlight is coming from the right. So you wouldn't even have, you know, a consistent light source when you're talking about analytic cubism. And then I started to add some little textures in. You can kind of do some cross-hatching and stuff like that, which is where you have the lines crossing each other, little stippling lines. And then you would just keep doing this. And this could evolve, you know, you could do a sketch. I always recommend starting with little sketches. Quinn, here's my cat, I'm sorry about that. He's trying to help out with this. I think you can hear him trying to make noise in the background. Well, he is making noise, not trying to. But, you know, you could start out with a sketch like this and then transform it into a painting, whether you're using watercolor or if you have other types of paint like acrylics or oil and you want to try that, you know, maybe start out with your pencil sketch. Or you could just leave it as a pencil or charcoal or an ink sketch if you want. You want to think about all the things that we've been talking about, focal points like this. For so far, as I'm working on this, this is the focal point, the center area over here. And you would think about balance, you know, am I using asymmetry or symmetry? I don't know if I mentioned this in any of the videos that I've done so far for your projects, but in two-dimensional works like paintings and prints and things like that, it's more common to see asymmetrical balance. It just seems like that's what we see in the natural world more often. And, you know, that's just the way it goes. Although you see a lot of really beautiful examples of symmetrical balance as well. Okay, so another thing you could try, if you want to try an actual collage, you know, you can just cut some of your forms. Actually, I'm going to stop this for a minute because I didn't cut my forms yet, and then I'll pick up in a minute. So this is part 2 of the Cubist project video. This one you can see I just started out with an idea. I based it loosely on the Picasso painting that I showed you, the synthetic collage painting. I believe this has actual collage in it, but it's a painting of the guitar, the abstracted guitar. And I kind of made my own little guitar with, you know, different forms. I added some flowers in, some butterfly shapes, added in some actual newsprint with the puzzle design, the word puzzle. I could do something else like echo different words and texts that are on here in other parts of the design. And when I'm doing the collages, like I showed you with the first note hymn that we did, I'm not gluing anything down until I'm happy with my design. This will probably pretty much stay, you know, these are just little quick examples I'm doing. They're not really finished pieces, just to give you an idea of how you could go about doing your own work. But eventually, you know, I could do more, maybe some watercolor over here. I did a little cross-hatching. Add in more with pencil or charcoal or magic marker or whatever I feel like doing. So you can really use whatever you have, you know, materials you have available, as well as the materials that you purchase for the class. So these are 2 examples of how you can go about creating the synthetic cubist style or the analytic cubist style. You know, you can really go off on your own tangent or whatever if you want to. Make sure that you look at all of the examples that I have in the assignment of different works that students did with this. There's some really nice examples of what people did. And don't forget that you can start with a reference point if you want to base it on one of the paintings that you looked at, the Cubist paintings by the various artists we've looked at, Picasso, Braque, Juan Gris, or you want to base it on a photograph that you took or some other image you like. You know, you can use that as a starting point, or you can work from your imagination as well if you feel like doing that. Okay, so I hope this helps, and have fun.